Alright, here with another special report. And before I start, just a note that this contains major spoilers for Atomic Heart, so proceed with caution. So Atomic Heart is out, and other than its clear allusions to Bioshock and Fallout, the game has garnered viral PR for a few reasons. 1, the Ballerina twins, which speak for themselves. 2, the studio's alleged link to the Kremlin. And 3, the game's purported reverence for the Soviet Union. We've covered the twins pretty exhaustively, and at this point I think it's clear that any link between Mundfish and the Russian government is circumstantial at best. Mundfish employees formerly worked for companies with much more direct ties to the Kremlin, but that's about it. So, let's talk about the game's atmosphere and setting, which is very much rooted in Soviet Russia, alternate history or not. You see, the game is set in an alternate 1955, where the Soviet Union is experiencing a technological renaissance thanks to a substance known as polymer. Back in 1936, Professor Dmitry Sakhanov combined the properties of heavy water and silicon to create polymer, which caused a revolutionary leap in the field of robotics. After the Soviets backed a national project called Facility 3826 to expand their polymer research, Sakhanov created the collective AI network to link the robots together. It got to the point where robots began replacing humans in the workforce, freeing them up for intellectual pursuits. And it's here that the game begins, with Sakhanov on the verge of unveiling Collective 2.0, which would link humans and robots together in the neural network, and thought devices, which would allow humans to control robots with their mind. And Facility 3826 is magnanimous over what could be an evolutionary breakthrough for humanity. So right off the bat, this version of the USSR seems a lot more benign than its real-life counterpart. While this is alternate history, the first half of the 20th century in-game transpired more or less the same as it did for us. Despite the presence of advanced AI, World War II still broke out, though it was far shorter. And Stalin apparently ruled this alternate Soviet Union until his death in 1953, like the real-life tyrant. The game never really touches on the nature of Stalin's reign and whether he cultivated the same atmosphere of paranoia and outright terror, though it's possible the Soviets' technological boom softened Stalin just a bit. But we're never told one way or another. And even with Stalin gone, his successor Nikita Khrushchev was still a devout communist, though the mass killings largely stopped. Either way, Khrushchev's KGB still kept the citizenry on their toes, and the USSR's sharp edge certainly didn't go away. In fact, it was under Khrushchev that the world nearly destroyed itself by a nuclear war, courtesy of the Cuban Missile Crisis. So this festive atmosphere in Atomic Heart's alternate Soviet Union seems out of place. Yes, some of the merriment is because of Collective 2.0, but the people are acting like there isn't a secret police watching their every move, ready to send political dissidents to the gulag. I get that the chipper mood is meant to contrast with the ugly reality of Facility 3826 with the robots going haywire, but the revelry goes a touch too far. We never gain a real appreciation for Soviet politics in this alternate timeline, and what's left unexplained is how a collectivist system that relies on 100% employment, at least on paper, can function with human labor obsolete. Curiously, a major part of the story involves the US suffering from rampant unemployment as a result of importing Soviet robots, but the USSR somehow avoids those dire consequences. That's a bit strange. Apparently, the Soviet communist system is infinitely adaptable. Unlike in real life, where small missteps led to mass starvation. But then the player character P3 enters Facility 3826, and we go from a shimmering utopia to a dystopian hellscape, with most of the workers dead and their robots running amok. What's strange is that robots programmed for menial tasks would possess combat functionality at all, and that's a key part of the mystery. Turns out that Sakhanov had been working with the Politburo on a project known as Atomic Heart, whereby the US would purchase robots from the Soviets, after which the commies would activate the bots' combat mode, so the same thing happening at Facility 3826 would instead occur on the enemy's native soil. And though a third party prevented that from happening by activating the bots' combat mode early, it wasn't to save America. Apparently, the true purpose of Collective 2.0 and the thought devices was to control humans in a matrix-like system where their minds were transported to a sort of limbo while their bodies could be forced to do whatever their masters wanted them to do. It's then, and only then, that the Resistance stepped in, hacked Collective 2.0, and caused the robots to rebel. So the quote, good guys in Atomic Heart were very much devout communists who were perfectly fine with seeing America crumble. But once they learned about the mind control, that's when they took action. So even though the squeaky clean exterior we see in the game's intro clearly doesn't represent reality, and this alternate Soviet Union still takes part in shady dealings, to say the least, the game only takes a moral stance on mind control. Destroying the US in a robotic apocalypse? That's fine. Pair that with all the Soviet decor, and the fact that P3 is also a devout communist, or at least he never questions his role, and he only really turns against rogue individuals, not an ideology. Mix all that together and it's hard not to see the game's reverence for the Soviet Union, as subtle as it might be. Think about it. The game's influences, principally BioShock, might not directly refute their philosophy du jour, like Ayn Rand's objectivism, but they certainly don't present it in a positive light either. Atomic Heart presents an alternate view of communism, apparently free from the Soviet Union's penchant for terror and mass murder. And while it is an alternate reality, it ignores all the terrible implications of the USSR in constructing its glorious utopia. It's almost like, I don't know, the developers were nostalgic for the heyday of the Soviet Union. Thanks for joining me for another special report. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my televisual program, and I'll see you next time. This is Jimmy Midnight signing off.